Welcome back to Morning Express. It's 28 minutes past 6 Kenyan time on this 9th day of May 2016. Time for us to look at the dailies, and I'll start off as usual with the Standard, where the headline on the Standard is Raila, why IEBC must go. Remember, that sets the pace for us on our poll question this morning as to whether you are in support of Occupy IEBC. I can see your comments coming through via Twitter, and I'll be reading them as we get to the end of this particular segment of the show. I'll read some of them. And well, Raila, why IEBC must go. Renewed push. Electoral bosses have lost impartiality, declares Raila, as opposition resumes protest to force commissioners out of office to allow reconstitution ahead of the polls. And of course, this is the opposition saying that they will continue with their Occupy IEBC picketing, which they had put on hold. It was supposed to take place on Wednesday, and this they put on hold because of, or rather in respect of Mama Lucy Kibaki, who was buried on Saturday. But the renewed call now is back, and according to James Orengo, one of the CORD leaders, he did mention that this was going to take place today. He also said that the three main CORD principals are going to be in attendance. That is Raila Amolo Odinga, we have Moses Wetangula, and Kalonzo Musyoka will be in attendance of that particular picketing exercise starting off today. We do know that Isaac Hassan, the boss of IEBC, came out to say that they will not be leaving office. The commissioners are not about to leave office, as this would set a bad precedent. Whenever you're dissatisfied with a certain institution, then what would happen is that they would be hounded off, according to Isaac Hassan. Well, we'll hear what you have to say. We'll also be tackling that on the way it is right here on Morning Express. Also on the front page of the Standard this morning, we have human rights and security. Of course, this is also in the backdrop of having lost one of Kenya's businessmen who was very controversial, Jacob Juma, who was shot in cold blood murder. And police killings number tells a shocking story. Now, according to this article, the number of gun-related deaths attributed to police between 2009 and 2013 is a whopping 563. 199 is the number of killings by police in 2014. There were a dozen more injuries that have not been quoted in this particular writing. 126 the case of police killings in 2015. 97 of these were summary executions. 20 shot to protect life, and 9 killed in unclear circumstances. So, of course, police killings in the highlight here, and this is according to human rights and security. Of course, with the opposition again leading in calls for the government to ensure that it is made clear, or the perpetrators or those responsible for the death of Jacob Juma to be brought to book. And of course, we do know that the Criminal Investigation Department has swung into action, albeit with some glaring questions that need to be answered. For example, the fact that the car that the slain businessman was in was not secured for more than 24 hours. So, of course, that brings to question the competence of the police, or, of course, as some are questioning, is there something that the police are trying to hide? There's also questions asked in regards to the fact that the family was not contacted for quite a number of hours from the time the incident took place to the time the body was taken to the city mortuary and later to Lee Funeral Home. It seems there was a lot of time taken before the family and the next of kin was informed. So, of course, huge questions that police need to answer, and the Criminal Investigations Department would have to answer. Let's move on to another story. And this is on page 3 of the Standard this morning. Wabukala praised for his efforts at a farewell service, and this took place yesterday, and ACK head urges his successor to carry on with the 1.9 billion investment program after he steps down in June. We do know that Eliud Abukala was stepping down, or rather his term is up, and hundreds of worshippers thronged the All Saints Cathedral yesterday to bid farewell to the retiring Anglican Church of Kenya Archbishop Eliud Bukala. He was praised for the work he had accomplished in the past 7 years of his helm. So, of course, we do know that the elections are going to be held not too long from now. And moving on to page 4, we have now the full story of Raila insisting that IEBC bosses are biased and must leave now. We do know that Isaac Hassan gave a condition, and he said that if they're to quit, if they're to leave office, then one of the conditions is that the Raila Odinga or the opposition or those calling for them to resign must present evidence for them to prove that they are indeed biased. But of course, that is a debate that continues and remains to be seen. Moving on now to page 10 of the Standard this morning. Eurobond, is IMF playing games after? In the first of a two-part series, veteran journalist Sarah Eldekin is arguing that what happened, or rather is looking or poking holes into what happened to the Eurobond proceeds, and whether it was decided by a small group of conspirators, and the truth remains a closely guarded secret. So this, of course, would make a very interesting read. Opposition leader, of course, Raila Odinga, has said that government officials whose job is to protect public interest prefer turning to him. We have President Uhuru Kenyatta announcing the state of the house was brilliant at the Eurobond was going to be for the economy. He was saying that, of course, the Eurobond was a good idea and was going to be excellent for the sake of the economy. We have Treasurer CS Henry Rotich convened a public financial management law in paying off a debt that was owed abroad. Well, details of that you can read. And finally, in the Standard, let's look at page 12. And the Judicial Service Commission throws out petition to sack 3 Supreme Court judges. Mboya had asked that they be fired for alleged gross misconduct, but JSC reportedly wants the judges reprimanded. Now, fresh controversy has rocked the JSC over the outcome of the petition which had called for the removal of 3 judges. Former Law Society of Kenya LSK Chief Executive Apollo Mboya had petitioned JSC to send home Supreme Court judges Jackton Ojwang, Mohamed Ibrahim and Joaquin Dongo over what he alleged was gross misconduct. But JSC, of course, has thrown that out, and you can get details of that. Remember, that is also just coming as we are anticipating and waiting for a new Chief Justice after Willie Mutunga hangs his boots pretty soon. That's what we have for you on the Standard. Remember, you can get yourself an online copy, and that's on www.standardmedia.co.ke/e-paper. Let's now look at the Daily Nation, where we have the headlines: Raila to lead fresh IEBC demos today, and Orengo says protests to go on across the country with or without bodyguards who have been warned by their bosses not to be involved. I beg your pardon. Excuse me. And of course, we do know that one of the things that the IG, Boynet, was he gave a warning to those bodyguards that are given the mandate to ensure the security of their bosses, VIPs, and this would also include opposition leader Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Wetangula, and they were warned that should they participate in any illegal demonstrations, then they risk being fired. As a result, Kalonzo Musyoka has even said one of his aides and one of his bodyguards has been withdrawn because he was involved in what the IG calls illegal demonstrations. So, with or without bodyguards, Orengo has made it clear that Occupy IEBC is still going to happen today. And of course, we're waiting to see how that is going to pan out. On the front page of the Nation as well, you can see a picture there of the Archbishop as he ends his tenure at the ACK head. That's the Anglican Church of Kenya. Archbishop Reverend Eliud Wabukala posing for a photo with his family after a special mass to mark the end of his tenure at the head of the church. And of course, we wait to see who the other leader is going to be. On the front page, we also have The story that DCI takes over Jacob Juma's murder case, and this of course is detectives yesterday visited the scene of the murder of the controversial businessman, Jacob Juma, as well as Current Police Station for the second day to investigate, or rather for investigations into what has been labeled as a high-scale assassination continued. There are major questions that are being brought to the table regarding that particular assassination, reasons, and of course how the police have handled it and whether they're competent enough. There had been calls from certain quarters that what they should do is ensure that they can even include the likes of the FBI to help our police ensure that this is done also by an independent body to get to the bottom of what may have happened or led to the killing of one Jacob Juma. On to page 3 of The Nation, Bond of Love in celebrating Mother's Day. And I don't know what you got your mother, or whether you managed to celebrate Mother's Day. For those who are mothers, whether you were celebrated. But yes, that was Mother's Day. And of course, it was celebrated in different forms and ways. And honor for women who risked their lives to give life as Kenyans joined the world to mark the day. That was done yesterday. And of course, there were images world over of what one would view as a mother. Some, of course, with heavy firewood on their backs, others carrying water, others breastfeeding, and of course, we can never ever thank them enough, but our mothers of course have been a backbone of our society and our country as a whole. Page 4 and 5, we have that full story of demos on today as CORD pushes to remove IEBC. Again, of course, with some proponents saying that it is illegal what they are doing. But of course, we do know, according to the Constitution, that one is allowed to picket and to demonstrate peacefully. But of course, there's a fine line drawn right there, because according to Isaac Hassan, he was saying they have no problem with the opposition sending few people to go to their office. And I remember during his press conference, he said that the office that they had could occupy 20 people. So if, for instance, IEBC has 10 and the opposition has 10, then they can sit down and have a discussion. However, they say that they will not entertain them coming in a huge mob and occupying several floors. And of course, they have said, the opposition have said that it is a peaceful demonstration. And the police have been requested and asked to exercise restraint, not to provoke any violence, because it is meant to be a peaceful protest, a peaceful picketing exercise. And of course, the police requested to exercise restraint and not to provoke the crowds to any anger or any demonstration that will trickle down to either violence or mayhem, with people scampering and running like it did last time. Let's now move on to page 9 of The Nation, and following up on the tragedy of Huruma, and rescuers now move into river. We do know that the rubble that they have been sifting through, they finished going through that, and as per noon yesterday, another 2 bodies were found and removed from the rubble. But the exercise of going through the rubble now is officially ended, but there are still 28 people missing, according to the National Disaster Management Unit, who have been championing this particular exercise. According to their records, there's still 28 people who are missing 10 days after the rescue operation was launched. So what they now want to do is to move the operation to Nairobi River, because some of the bodies may have been carried, given that this was at a time where the floods were very heavy and it was a furious time. The water was, there was a lot of water, and people may have been drowned and carried into the river. So the rescue operation now moving towards the river. And so far, 140 people had been rescued and 49 confirmed dead. So of course, with NDMU, that's the National Disaster Management Unit, calling on families to, those who have their loved ones missing, to also check with the city mortuary to ensure that they may possibly if they're not there, for them to at least now continue so that we may have accurate records of those that are missing. Page 10 and 11, 9 killed as floods leave a trail of pain and destruction countrywide. 3 children drowned as they try to cross a river on their way back from their grandmother. So, of course, the stories of floods and how dangerous these flash floods can be. And I think there was a video that was doing rounds, and hopefully many of us have been able to take a look at it, and this is some of the things that that you need to take precaution over. A road that possibly was usable within a matter of minutes can become a disaster zone. So please ensure and exercise caution when it rains very heavily. Ensure that if you must not go, please stay put, so long as where you are, again, of course, is a safe area. You would rather be safe than sorry. I do know some friends who got stuck on Saturday night. They had gone to visit, and as a result of the flash floods, they took the caution. It was a river where they could have, risked crossing, but they took it upon themselves and decided, you know what, given the safety precautions that we've been given, it might be a better idea to ensure that we just spend the night where we are. It was not convenient, but better safe than sorry. On to the back page of the Daily Nation, report unearths massive fraud in procurement of school books. And a new report has unearthed massive irregularities in procurement of textbooks to public schools, with head teachers playing a key role. Now, the fraud ranges from forging signatures, this is serious, delivery of phantom books, overpricing, and single sourcing of suppliers by instructional material selection committees at that level. So, of course, details coming out of fraud when it comes to the buying of textbooks. We remember this has been one of the areas that has had a lot of controversy surrounding it, and the ministry coming out to say that even textbooks now will not be mandated or put under head teachers. They will look for a new procurement process where head teachers will not be involved in the procurement of those textbooks. Let's now finally look at the Star, where the headlines is, "Why Kikuyus Never Vote for Me, Raila." And that's the headlines on the Star. And there's an interesting picture there of ODM leader saying that he fears, or rather the picture is interesting in that he seems to be enjoying a very nice piece of meat right there. I believe this was in a Maasai area, looking at the dress code right there. But now the main story here being that why the ODM saying why Kikuyus never vote for him, despite the fact, and it's on page 4, if we can just look at page 4, ODM leader says fear has been spread in central Kenya that he is dangerous. And he says the reason why many Kikuyus do not vote for him is propaganda spread by ethnic chauvinists to keep him away from the presidential post. And an interesting picture there taken of the three. We have the former president, Mwai Kibaki, we have the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and we have Raila Odinga looking on. So there an interesting read right there as to why Kikuyus do not vote for Raila Odinga. Page 6 of the Star, Judiciary to run 4 months without a CJ. Mutunga will leave office on June 16th, paving way for JSC to advertise. Now, according to this article on page 6, the Judiciary will run for about 4 months without a Chief Justice once Willie Mutunga exits office in June. The roadmap prepares for the Judicial Service Commission says the earliest Kenya will have the next CJ is October. Mutunga will exit the judiciary on June 16, paving way for JSC to advertise the position. And Commission Tom Ojiende says the JSC will give Kenyans wishing to succeed Mutunga 21 days to apply. So in case you're planning to apply for that position, begin to get your curriculum vitae. Actually, by now it should be ready, I should imagine. Page 10, IEBC commissioners are biased and must resign. That is according to Court Principal Raila Odinga. We are now, in fact, at the point where they can no longer hide their disdain for CORD. That is according to Raila Odinga. They now refer to us as you people. And that's in quotes. So the question is whether IEBC is independent or not. As we wind up our newspaper review, just a quick reminder of the question. And the question is this morning is, are you in support of Occupy, the renewed effort by the CORD fraternity to occupy IEBC? And let me just read some of the comments that have come through so far. And we have Stephen Kikau, in regards to that question, says that Jubilee wants CORD to go to court as they know how corrupt the court is, and they will manage to win. Okay, that's Stephen Kikau. We have Iminet that says, when a child throws a tantrum, however genuine, they are allowed until they come to a level where they are level-headed for a discussion. So what's your take on that? Are you in support of CORD's renewed call to occupy IEBC? We'll take a short break. That's where we're going to wind up our newspaper review. Do stay with us right here on Morning Express. Later on, we've got the way it is from 7 o'clock. Don't go away.